Hi again. Walter Rauschenbusch in the chapter Social Impetus of Primitive Christianity, page 97 of Christianity and the Social Crisis. There were various important drifts and movements in early Christianity, but only those which were finally victorious in Catholic Christianity secured a fair and permanent historical record. For instance, the great Gnostic movement, which was as important in the world of thought in the 2nd century as the evolutionary idea is in our own age, was finally thrust out by the Church. And of all its rich literature, we have only one book left, and of course that's changed since Rauschenbusch's day in 1907. We now have many books of the Gnostics. Otherwise, we are dependent for our information on the partisan statements and garbled quotations of its enemies, who were, for the most part, Orthodox Christians. The Jewish Christian church was at first the whole of the Christian church. Gradually, it was outstripped by the rapid growth of the Gentile churches, and through its doctrinal conservatism and prejudices, and through the force of outward events, it was left in the lurch of the larger movement and gradually separated from it in sympathy. Jewish Christian bodies survived to the 5th century, but they were then regarded as heretical, and their literature had little chance of survival. The Epistle of James and the Revelation of John are more or less directly the product of this Jewish Christianity. They were saved from the deluge of oblivion because they were admitted into the Ark of the Canon, and they were thus admitted only because they bore the names of apostles, and then only reluctantly. Now, the Jewish Christian churches represented the radical social wing of the primitive church. They were leavened by the ancient democracy of the Hebrew prophets and of post-exilic Judaism. In popular Jewish thought, the poor and the godly were simply identified, and there was a frequent and strident note of hostility to the upper classes. The Epistle of James shares this Jewish spirit. It is one of the most democratic books of the New Testament. Let a brother in humble circumstances boast of his exalted rank, and a rich brother of his humble rank, for like the flower of the grass will he pass away. In the midst of his business will he wilt away. He describes indignantly how the rich man is ushered obsequiously into a front pew while the poor man is sent into the gallery. That seems to him a reversal of God's judgment, for the poor, as a class, have been chosen by God to be rich in the Christian faith and heirs of the coming kingdom. And here he's been referring to James chapter 2, as well as James 1, 9-11. Those who are poor have been chosen by God to be rich in the Christian faith and heirs of the coming kingdom, while the rich as a class are the oppressors of the Christians and their enemies of the name of Christ. He pronounces an invective against the rich, which would seem intolerably denunciatory in the mouth of a modern socialist preacher. Hear now, you rich men, weep and wail for the calamities coming upon you. Your wealth is rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have rusted, and their rust shall accuse you, and eat into your flesh like fire. You have foolishly piled up wealth just before the world ends. Look now, the wages of the working men who have reaped your fields, which you have fraudulently retained. They cry out against you, and the outcries of the reapers have come to the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived in luxury and wantonness on earth. You have fattened your hearts like cattle for a day of slaughter. You have condemned in the courts and done to death the just man who offers no resistance to you. That's all a quote from James chapter 5, verses 1-6. Before that, James 2, 1-9. The significance of such a passage lies not in itself, but in the body of sentiment of which it is a manifestation. The Apocalypse of John is part of the popular apocalyptic literature which flourished both among the Jews and the Jewish Christians, and the hope of a revolutionary overturning is the essence of the apocalyptic hope, as we shall see later. Next time, Rauschenbusch goes on with the radical social spirit of the Jewish Christians compared to other Christian churches in that first era. I'm going to link to Leon Morris's discussion of apocalyptic, and also to James on the nature of true religion.